Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I've been going out with a girl, her name is Julie, but last night she said to me when we were watching telly.
James from Hornchurch, speak to us.
Hiya, yes, I see a lot of this, and I'm glad you brought this up, Majid. It's a very important thing, because it's escalating out of control to the point where, I mean, have you heard about Jane Fonda's husband? He's a known liberal. He's a known liberal sort of activist fella, and he's actually put out a tweet saying that they should get the ICE agents, who are the people that remove the children or what have you, should get one of them, put their kid in a cage and lock him in there with a paedophile. This is what he's actually sent out. So on one hand, he's morally outraged about what's supposedly going on with his children, yet he says that in a tweet. And this is the cognitive dissonance.
But James, would you agree with me that my point is that actually I'm saying all of this because I want to be able to oppose the Trump administration's policy, but oppose them in a morally consistent way. So would you agree with me that what Trump's administration has been doing is absolutely and totally unconscionable?
I believe that he is in a bit of a hard position where he's inherited these laws which have a terrific amount of loopholes.
These weren't laws, though, James. What Trump's administration does by separating 2,000 children from their parents was a executive decision made by people on the borders to prosecute. The reason this came about is they chose to prosecute every single adult across the border, and of course you can't prosecute a child, and so you have to separate the child from the parent. So it's a decision they made to prosecute every single adult, and that wasn't a law. It was an executive decision.
It reminds me of the old, was it hostile environment, what our government's doing. But yeah, I see where you're coming at with it. But this is the problem, which is what worries me with the Liberals, is that they're...
No, forget the Liberals a minute, James. I'm not sure you answered my first question, which is it unconscionable that Trump is doing it?
He has acted upon it, and he's drawn up a new white paper to get rid of...
Yeah, okay, but that wasn't my question, James. Is it unconscionable that the Trump administration separated 2,000 families? 2,000 children from their parents.
Well, if we want to speak the truth, which we do, when you actually see Melania Trump, when she was actually in there, if anyone's bothered to watch it, you have a team of 10 people there.
No, James, that wasn't my question. James, I'm going to ask you one last time. We have to move on. Is it unconscionable that Trump's administration, even though they've ended it now, is it unconscionable that they separated 2,000 children from their parents?
You're being hypocritical about what you're talking about right now. You're doing it right now.
How's that, Josh? Everyone heard that. I mean, what do I do with that? I just set up an entire show saying, let's be consistent. I just condemned Obama's administration and condemned the Time magazine cover, and that chap can't bring himself to condemn Trump. I mean, look, am I glutton for punishment? Because I know a whole bunch of liberals are going to attack me for what I just said, and yet I can't even get a Trump supporter to I give up. Good afternoon, it's Majid Nawaz here on LBC discussing the manufacture of grief to score political points. Tell me what you think. Yes, it's unconscionable that President Trump and his administration have separated up to 2,000 children from their parents. Is it also unconscionable that those children were held in cages even under Obama? And do we need to be more consistent in our purported concern for the welfare of migrant children? 03456060973. Chris is calling from Bristol. Go for it, Chris.
My real question was two, really. First one, I mean, Trump inherited this system, yes?
No.
So is he... you're saying it's an operation under Obama?
No, I'm saying that the decision to separate parents by prosecuting every adult and therefore, by definition, separate the child from the parent... Hold on, let me answer your question, Chris. You asked me a question, I'm answering it. The decision to prosecute every adult and therefore making it necessary to take the children away from those parents when you're prosecuting them because you can't prosecute children, which then led to the separation of 2,000 children from their parents, which is unconscionable. That was a decision purely and solely made by Trump's administration.
Okay, to come back on that point alone, from what I've read, not all the children were separated from their parents, but more from the adults that brought them over. They weren't unnecessarily their parents that actually brought them into the country.
That's so. Out of those 2,000, whatever percentage were parents, let's say it was 10%. It's still unconscionable, isn't it, Chris?
They've broken the law.
Sorry?
They've broken the law. It happens in this country. If you break
who broke the law?
You're a parent, eh?
Who broke the law?
It happens to so these parents, when they came to the US, they're undocumented. So they were picked up.
So you're saying it's so you don't think it's so you're okay with it? Is that what you're saying? You're okay with it?
It happens in this country as well.
No, Chris, are you okay with it? Are you okay with separating up to 2,000 children from the parents at the border?
Up to 2,000 parents who have entered the country undocumented, so they technically committed a criminal act.
Are you okay with it?
It happens in this country. It's, what else is there to do?
Chris, are you okay with it? Yes or no? Are you okay?
I'm okay with it. I'm fairly neutral on it.
You're neutral on it? All right, so you're okay with it, because that's what the word okay means. It's like, yeah.
It's a necessary evil, let's put it that way.
All right, well, that means, because even, by the way, even President Trump doesn't agree with you now. So you're to the right of Trump on this.
No, I'd say that I'm going by the letter of the law on this.
Well, there is no letter of the law, Chris. There is no law that obliges Trump's administration to tear babies from their mother's arms.
No, there is a letter in the law that says, the parents, if they have committed a criminal act, undocumented entry is a criminal act, that those parents should be removed from the children. Is that right?
That's not what the law says, Chris. The law says if you prosecute the adult, then the child cannot be prosecuted with the adult, but the decision to prosecute is at the discretion of the border agency.
Okay, and you'll say that they're wrong to not prosecute.
No, I'm saying that the decision to prosecute is at the discretion of the border agency if the outcome of the policy change that happened under Trump's administration is to deliberately prosecute every single adult. It will lead to a spike in tearing babies away from their mother's arms, and that is unconscionable. To detain a 6-year-old child after ripping it from its mother's arms and detain it separately in a cage away from its parent is, I think, child abuse.
The cage bit, I will say, is wrong.
Sorry?
The cage bit, I will say, is totally wrong.
Why? Why is that wrong?
Well, you're holding an innocent child in a cage.
So it's okay to pull them away from their parents' arms, yeah?
In this country, it falls to the social services in similar situations, and similar situations do happen in this country. And in many other European countries that you'd class as liberal.
But Chris,
let's not forget that. Let's not.
Why do you think Trump? Chris, why do you think? Well, I'm trying to with you. Why do you think President Trump changed his mind on this policy and reversed it?
Well, he hasn't totally reversed taking the children away from the parents, as far as I'm aware.
Well, that's the executive order that's come down now. He's not going to allow that for this to continue, where children are being torn from their parents' arms.
Where it's recognised from the parents, aren't they supposed to be kept in unused military camps now?
No. Well, I asked you a question first, Chris. Why do you think President Trump changed his mind?
Because keeping them in cages for one was really not good, and he is a family man.
Yeah. All right, perhaps you're not, I'm not sure.
I just want to finish by saying your reputation's amazing. I will not let you down. You will be very, very impressed, I hope. And I think we'll be speaking a lot.
That's the liberals. They want to get you in a dungeon. They want to strap you down and take a buzzsaw and cut the top of your head off like a pumpkin and pull it off and get a little spoon and go, well, you're looking in a mirror. This is one thing I know they like to do. They go, I'm going to eat your brain now. Let's start at the side areas here, because we don't want to take away your sight at the back or your thinking on the front. I'm going to eat your cerebral cortex last, because I've got power. I love Satan, and I'm going to suck you dry, and I'm going to torture you to death. So I never expected Trump charging into a goblin's nest to not get some goblin vomit and slop and blood on him. I just don't want to catch him in bed with a goblin. But if he's in there rolling around hacking him up and he's got a goblin guide, taking him into the cave, I'm not expecting him to not get dirty. especially up to his ankles. I don't want to see him kissing goblins, having political succubus with goblins. I don't want to see him ingratiating goblins. We made the joke that once he gets into office, it's one thing if he has some establishment folks to guide him through the mines of Moria, to use the Lord of the Rings analogy. If you're not a J.R.R. Tolkien fan, you won't know what I'm talking about, but I think most people are from the movies. It's one thing if he has a guide that's kind of a bad guy to take him through the mines of Moria or under the mountain. But if you catch him kissing goblins, or if you catch him in bed with a goblin, that's a problem. Because we're going to have a new scale here. I'm actually going to have it made digitally where it's on a scale of goblins. Is it charging into a goblin's nest, hacking them to pieces? Or is it just going, around the goblins? Is it kissing goblins? Even though you still stab them, you give them a kiss? Or is it catching him in bed with a goblin? And then the final scale, is Trump going to have babies with a goblin and actually help the New World Order and turn against us like Darth Vader? He's going to marry a goblin. So you just learned about another level of the scale. Not just in bed with a goblin, marry a goblin.
Let's go to Danny, who's in Epsom. Hi, Danny.
Hi, Tom. The bottom line is, I think we need to take a step back and look at it and think, right, the population of the developing and third world rises by about 5% every year, right? So the population rising exponentially, much bigger than the developed world. What do you think happens to the developed world if we allow mass numbers of immigration into the developed world? What do you think happens? I'll tell you what happens. We become the developing world. We've already seen in 1 or 2 generations what we've imported from the Islamic third world.
Well, no, hang on. That's not always the case, is it? You can't say that mass immigration from one country to another has led to that country becoming worse over a period of time. Look what's happened in America. Look what's happened in Australia, historically.
Yeah, but that was on the world itself. There wasn't this disparity in the world that there is now. I would say, if you look just from the Islamic third world in the last 2 generations, FGM, honour killing, sham marriage, suicide bombing, the full veil, there's any number of issues that we've imported. They didn't exist 2 generations ago. Just as one example.
No, they did. The culture, arguably, the cultural gap has been closing between certain parts of the world as a result of increased globalization.
I think you've brought something up that we're even talking about. What I was saying is, in this country, we've imported quite a lot from the Islamic third world just in 2 generations. It's obvious and clear to see. Our population change has been massive in the last. We've changed like the entire population. The census of 1951, we were 98.8% white, Christian, and broadly spoke the same language. Less than one man's lifetime. Look at what we've got now.
You can't say, Danny, that is in any and all circumstances a bad thing, because it's not.
Yeah,
demonstrably not.
It's much worse, because I think countries that have a more homogenised societies tend to be better. They tend to be more harmonious.
There is a problem.
I think at the moment we're a multiracial mess that no one ever wanted to ask for, and we need to get a grip.
There is a problem, Danny, with certain areas of society being integrated better in this country. That is completely true. But I think to suggest that any and all immigration from certain parts of the world will lead to this country turning into that part of the world is demonstrably untrue, and actually is an attitude that needs changing, particularly as we see. Fortunately, fewer people are trying to make this journey across the Med at the moment. But it's certainly an attitude that goes down well in places like Hungary and the Czech Republic. It's certainly the attitude of some of the leaders in those countries, as we have seen. They are some of the Visegrad countries who have blocked this summit completely. They've not even bothered to show up because they don't want to be told that they have to take these people. Danny, thank you. We'll leave it there. Let's go back to your calls in the meantime on migration, the problem that is facing the EU, the biggest problem that the EU faces. You can forget Brexit. Let's go to Italy. Let's speak to Yvette, who is near Genoa this afternoon. Hi, Yvette.
Hello.
The Italians are furious about EU proposals. Is that something that you see around you with your colleagues, your friends in Italy as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would just like to make what I think is a very important point. Everybody keeps pushing about the fact that immigrants went to America, immigrants went to Australia, immigrants went to New Zealand. What you forget to say is that they decimated the indigenous populations of those countries when they immigrated, and it's happening over here.
When did you move to Italy, Yvette?
17 years ago.
And did the local population feel that you were displacing them when you came over?
Because I am Italian.
Right. Well, that's helpful in that context then. So your suggestion that under no circumstances can anyone come in without displacing the domestic population, and that's always a bad thing.
No, you're twisting my words, which is your reason I know for diverse conversation, but that is not what I said.
So what?
I didn't say that at all.
So what are you saying then? Are you saying that in these numbers?
I am saying enough is enough. This is not a rich country for the ordinary man in the street. There is not enough money to go around to accommodate anybody else before we deal with our own domestic problems. There's massive unemployment among the young. There's massive lack of building for the ordinary person in the street.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot take any more, nor can anybody else in the EU take any more, unless we get massive influx of monies from somewhere to accommodate them.
So what should happen to the people then?
Send them back to where they came from. I speak to them. They all speak beautiful English. It's humbling, really, how well some of them do speak English, and I do speak to many, many, many of them. And another thing that really is quite amazing, they're nearly all men.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to the wives, the sisters, the grandmothers, the children?
Well,
they're nearly all men. You look at these votes today that you see on television. How many women are there? They're nearly all men. And another thing that happens is they carry on their tribal interaction arguments once they're land in these countries. They still fight among themselves with knives and God knows what else at weekends, in the week. They don't finish.
And you see that, do you?
When they come over here.
You've seen that yourself?
And it's in the local papers.
Right.
I've actually seen it.
So
it happens on a daily basis.
So you would be happy...
Carry on their tribal argument over here.
You would be happy, Yvette, then, to see the Italian government take matters into their own hands, and regardless of what the EU tells them to do, Italian boats, presumably the Italian military, would take these people back to the shores of the country that they left from?
Let Angela Merkel have them, because she was the one that started the problem. Come, she said, come. How were they supposed to get there?
Well, they came through many other European countries in order to do so, didn't
Absolutely.
they? It's about 1.5 million.
In the first place. Yes. It wasn't beam me up Scotty, was it? They couldn't just stand there and get to Germany.
And part of the reason for putting in the idea of putting in these processing centres in these countries is precisely to do that, to stop the movement of people, in a lot of cases on foot, through much of Europe in order to get to Germany, and therefore that if Germany were to accept responsibility for a proportion of those people, they could be brought over from that country and save themselves the harm that would be caused by moving overseas and using smuggling routes in order to get in. Yvette, thank you. Strong views from Italy. Thank you for them.
And the same big families and companies that push Prozac on everybody and Ritalin and all these other garbage drugs are the ones pushing the illegal drugs. And people think the drug culture is cool. It's not cool. It's dirty. It's pathetic. It's a joke. Don't use drugs, kids. Don't give money to the Federal Reserve, who's been caught hundreds of times laundering the money and doesn't get in trouble. Don't give money to Warren Buffett, whose banks have been caught laundering hundreds of billions. Don't give them any money. I hate them. And don't give McDonald's any money or Monsanto any money or any of these people. Stop it. It's the only way to break their back. Excuse me. And I went like this. Hello, everybody. I'm Alex Jones. I did a scientific report here. And I heard the mainstream media said conspiracy theorist trillions of times. Does that make it true? We'll be right back. Stay with me.
David's in Acton. David, what's going on?
Morning, James. I think that I'm going to give the Conservative Party, the government, a slight bit of intelligence.
Yes.
I think that they've been briefed in one of those kind of secret meetings that they have once a year, that the EU is going to implode in the next 2 to 3 years with all the different pressures there are on the continent.
Briefed by whom?
Sorry?
Briefed by whom?
That Bilderberg Group, people like that.
The Bilderberg Group, mate. You're on the wrong show, David. I'm so sorry. I don't want to sound ungrateful.
Why are you saying that?
You think the Bilderberg Group is...
Bilderberg Group, I beg
Well, I mean,
pardon.
partly because you didn't even know what it was called before you told me that it secretly runs the world. That would be reason number one why you might...
No, I haven't said it runs the world at all.
No, but it's right about everything, and it's briefed the Conservative Party that the EU is going to collapse. Do you know that the heads of BMW and Siemens and Airbus would probably...
They're all in the same boat.
Yes, so they'd be there as well?
No, this is not a massive conspiracy party theory I'm trying to say. I'm saying that they know, with the pressures on the... in Europe, it's going to be very hard to hold the EU together.
Right.
And that Britain's course within it faces a very rocky road, even if we do...
And how would that message not have reached the heads of the biggest businesses in Europe?
They know that as well.
So why don't they want to stay? Why don't they want to put all their eggs in this basket then?
Because they have to answer to their shareholders at the moment.
Right. So the shareholders don't know the truth. Only the bosses and the politicians do.
They do know it, but it's a question of holding public opinion.
Right.
And I think this is what they're trying to do: hold public opinion, unsuccessfully, obviously, but they're trying to hold public opinion. That's to give the Conservatives an intelligent answer.
Well, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree on what constitutes an intelligent answer. But I'm prepared to accept that you are speculating on possible motivations rather than necessarily endorsing the idea that the Bilderberg Group somehow holds the reins of governments. Well, you did say that, mate. You said they've been briefed by the Bilderberg Group on what was going to happen, and that's why they're doing what they're doing.
No, I'm trying to suggest that people like the Bilderberg Group and people who contribute to their think tanks probably briefed the Conservative Party or the government of what's likely to happen in the near future, and it is playing out.
Well, except it isn't, but that's again something we can agree to disagree on. And just for the record, in the course of that phone call, we used up every single mention of the Bilderberg Group that we permit ourselves on this programme annually, OK? So just to make that absolutely clear. Be lizards next.
Bilderberg is heavily involved in the EU plan and helped hatch it, and it is a Nazi plan. They had Lockheed scandals, just like the big lobbying scandals right now in the 70s, and that's why the SS officer, Prince Bernhard, the founder, had to step down. It is the ultimate lobbying meeting while you guys have this huge scandal going on. Your prime minister's going there. Balls was just here, Bilderberg Group member. We have forced them from cover to admit that there are puppeteers above the major parties.
David around. So now we know now we know that Bilderberg has given us the euro.
Yes, I mean, if you talk to Alex for any length of time, you discover all kinds of things that you didn't know about the world.
We've blown it wide open.
You have. You have absolutely blown it wide open. But it leaves me with a huge question for you, Alex, and it's really, you have uncovered the New World Order, which is deadly. It's full of what you call people who are criminals. Well, this is what I'm coming to. It's full of criminals, etc., who seek to run the world and will kill anybody who gets in their way. And you are almost, and have been, a lone crusader powering against them.
No, that's
so how come?
How am I alive?
How are you still alive?
Why am I alive?
Well, no, which is yes. Listen,
Why am I alive?
Which is the explanation? One, they don't exist. Or two, you're part of the conspiracy.
No, let me tell you a story.
I say the first.
5 years ago when Obama and Hillary...
I say the second.
5 years ago when Hillary and Obama were at Bilderberg and the Secret Service was there in helicopters, the New York Times came out and said I was crazy. There was no Bilderberg Group meeting. And my wife got phone calls, and so did I, threatening to kill us. And the people said, and you better take it serious because you were just talking to your dad that was in the hospital. You better shut your mouth or we're going to cut your head off.
But
now that, no, that's
the... going to kill
that,
you,
they listen to everybody's phone lines. They call up and harass people that expose them and tell them what they were just talking about.
They harass
You're going to say there's no spying.
Alex,
it's like Nazi Germany. The only spy on the bad guys, huh?
You let him speak now.
Well,
sure.
Alex,
I saw one of your ministers say this, though.
No,
Alex, I'm here.
There's tyranny.
No, shut up.
I'm here to testify that your head was not cut off.
Ladies and
are you
gentlemen,
sure
if
about
they
that?
kill me, it turns me into a martyr.
it puts big exclamation points on the end of what I've said, and I have put out a lot of information. There's millions of others that are exposing it, and look, we have mega banks that are getting $85 million a month of U.S. taxpayer money. Most of it goes to Europe and England. British taxpayers, EU taxpayers have to pay to these mega bankers. They're in there setting this up. It's come out. And then the media distracts you with, look at a guy that talked to a lobbyist when the real lobbyist is going on.
Listen, you're not going to dominate this. He gets to speak too. It's not your own radio show. Should we be worried about Bilderberg Group at all?
It's kind of, it's mildly interesting, the Bilderberg Group, and it feels, doesn't it, when you were talking about it in the film, slightly kind of out of date as belonging to the era when you couldn't, when you couldn't even admit in Parliament that there was a success, you know, when we called the head of MI5M or whatever it was that we called them, and we couldn't admit to these things. Yeah. And so to the extent that it seems
people
rather
weren't ready to be spied on yet.
What was that a fact?
People hadn't been acclimated yet.
Did you let him finish?
We're in a police state. It's 1984.
Yeah, listen,
well, you guys just want to normalize it.
Would you let him
Alex,
finish?
how come you're here? If we're in a police state, how come
they actually turned back some of my reporters, but they didn't turn me back, and I was told this because they don't want to make a stink.
Do you think the BBC is part of the Bilderberg Group?
Well, you know, Winston Smith did work here. I mean, come on, Eric Blair worked here, and that's what he said it was.
Why do you think we've let you on? Why have we let you on then?
Because you guys think that you can manage the whole thing, and now our information's gotten too big. I have 3 million radio listeners a day. That's a low number. 3 million. I get about 50 million YouTube views a month. That's a very conservative number. I make films, put them online for free, that get watched 40 million times, like the Obama deception. That's why, because the establishment doesn't know what to do.
Now, Alex has this point, and it's an important one. I would have, say, 10 years ago said, listen to all this stuff. He believes that people put cancer virus in vaccine in order to create a eugenics program. That's what he believes.
We talk about medical discoveries.
And we would have said, I would have said, hey, that's kind of mad and so on. And it's an interesting psychological phenomenon.
Like
the problem is that conspiracy theories like this are believed in.
Hey, listen, I'm here to warn people. You keep telling me to shut up. This isn't a game. Okay, our government in the U.S. is building FEMA camps. We have an NDAA where they disappear people now. You have this arrest for public safety, life in prison.
You are the worst person I've ever interviewed.
No, it's basically off with their heads, disappear
David,
them, take them away.
Being with us.
Infowars.com.
It's 11:30. You're watching the Sunday Politics. We have an idiot on the program today. Coming up in just 20 minutes.
You will not stop the Republic. Humanity is awakening. Infowars.com. No. You guys are crazy.
I'll be looking at the week ahead with our political panel. Until then, the Sunday Politics across the UK.
Michael is in Bushy. Michael, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James. Hello. First of all, I'd like to say I'm a businessman. I voted to stay in. My wife voted to go out.
Okie dokie.
But what I'm saying, you listened to your thing this morning, you seem to blame capitalism and shorting the pound. What you don't seem to realise is that if we did go the way you're saying, everybody in this country will fall out because the pension funds will fall down that rely when they get older. Now, I believe that Theresa May...
Freudian slip. Freudian slip there, Michael.
Yeah.
She's doing the right thing. So, well, tell me what she's doing first, then.
Well, basically, if you're playing poker, you're playing cards with somebody, you never tell on your hand.
But they've shown us their hand.
They're showing us there, and we're going to play hard to get. Now, I agree, we've got to get some sort of solution.
But they don't know. The way it works, very simply, is that there are established and published rules that the European Union is constitutionally bound by, and they have explained repeatedly and publicly what those rules are, and then they ask the British government to explain how they're going to accommodate those rules, and the British government so far has come up with nothing. So you're still, despite the fact that the heads of BMW, and I appreciate you're in business, but the heads of BMW, Siemens, Unipart, pretty much everybody except the bloke that runs Wetherspoons, they've all said that we don't have it. They have to show us the cards now. If they don't show us the cards now, we are absolutely up the Swanee, and you're still thinking that's the right analogy.
Are you telling me that BMW and Mercedes and all these people are going to refuse to sell their cars to England? You know,
no, Michael, you must listen, my friend. I'm telling you what they are saying.
That's what they're saying, and that's allegedly what they're saying by the press.
It's not allegedly what they're saying. The press conferences have been filmed. You can watch them yourself.
I agree, it's not false news, but then somebody else brought up Trump, right?
No, we're talking about what you have said. Forgive me, this absolutely absurd notion that we somehow have hidden cards that are going to send a shiver down the European Union's spine. The whole nature of being a third nation is that the rules are already in place. So our choice would be either to be like Canada or, at the other end of the scale, to be like Ukraine. If we're staying out of the customs union and the single market, that's Switzerland and Norway off the table. Those are the only cards, Michael. We know what the cards are. We actually know what they are.
I agree we know what the cards are, but I still believe that Theresa May is playing it the right way. I agree also, you know, you can't have Jacob Rees-Mogg as the Prime Minister. But I think it's the only way, and you mentioned the alternative.
But you're kind of agreeing that night is day and black is white in the course of a single conversation. There is no card that Theresa May can play that will trump what the European Union have already put on the table. It just doesn't exist.
No, but there are compromises that she can work around.
There aren't really. Not when that's what a red line is, mate. A red line is a refusal to compromise. So unless you're suggesting that the red lines were bogus, then your whole position kind of wobbles a bit.
It might wobble a bit, but I
was being polite. It falls apart, Michael, like a cheap suit, and we both know it.
Oh, okay. I think we're going to beg to differ. But
no, we're not begging to differ. I'm saying things that are just true, and you're saying, yes, but maybe, hopefully, something else.
I'm hoping, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with hope. It's the hope that gets you, you know. The despair I can cope with, Michael. It's the hope that gets you in the end.
You know, just one other thing on Trump, and I know you want to talk about. He's the only politician that actually does what he said when he did in his campaign.
What's he done that he said he was going to do?
Well, he said he was going to build a border.
Has he built a wall?
He hasn't built it yet.
Right, so what's he done that he said he was going to do?
He's bringing in protective things to protect the American steel industry.
He's doing what?
He's trying to bring in
the tariffs.
Keep it tariffs. And
yeah, you've seen that Harley Davidson is moving production out of America as a result of the tariff battle.
Yes, I saw that in today's paper.
Did he say that was going to happen in the election?
No, he didn't.
Right. So it's the wall that hasn't been built yet, and the tariffs that are seeing American manufacturers move out of America.
I'm not a fan of Trump. Don't get me
wrong. Well, don't come on and tell me he's the only politician that delivers in his what he said he was going to deliver in his campaign. Did he say anything about becoming the world's child catcher in chief? Can you remember him saying that during the campaign?
No.
No, me neither. It's 11 o'clock.
Maria's in Birmingham. Hello, Maria.
Hello, Ian. It's a pleasure to speak to you.
And you.
I think we like to have a pantomime villain, and there's got to be one person that we proverbially throw the tomatoes at. I think, unfortunately, we've become like sheep, and that we're not allowed to think for ourselves. We've got to all follow the lead of strong individuals, be they Hollywood A-listers or influential media types. I think even he's a flawed character, undoubtedly, but which one of us can say we aren't flawed in some way or other? And the fact that he's a world leader, somebody's got to lead, and none of us is perfect. So you'd expect a world leader to be as flawed as an ordinary member of the public.
Would you? I'm not so sure. I think I look for something more in particularly from United States presidents. And okay, there have been plenty of flawed characters over the years, but it's quite difficult to make a solid defence of Donald Trump on the basis of lack of flaws, I would argue.
Well, an awful lot of people would appear to be not flawed. And that's because they have an army of people around them making sure that they smooth out the PR. I'm just thinking, for example, Jeremy Thorpe in his day was considered a gentleman in politics. And as I think the evidence has shown now in hindsight, it was a very different story.
No, sure, but we're living this, and we can see the flaws in front of our eyes, can't we? That's the problem. And I would say, I
actually think that's a safeguard. I would rather see the problems there and now than I would see them concealed. And, for example, another example was Nixon. At least what we're seeing now is the true Trump, not one that's been groomed, if you like, for media success. I think we saw a little bit of that in Blair, and look where that got us.
OK, Maria, thank you very much indeed for that. Most of these butch lesbians, they want to be the guy smacking the hot chick around. They think that's manly. And a lot of the chicks, they like it. See, because no man will do that to them, and I'm not saying it's good if a man does that, but some women like it. And if they can't find a man to smack them around, well, they found them a girl going to do it real good. Knock them upside their head and have 50 Shades of Grey about the sexy rich guy that's going to chain you up. Of course, you're going to get chained up one time. They're going to put that devil mask or that piggy mask on. They're going to say, now I'm going to torture you for about 6 weeks. They'll start begging for your mommy and your daddy. I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy. Freedom came my way one day. I was starting out of town when I saw Sheriff John Brown coming to shoot me down. So I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot no deputy. Problem in the Middle East and Pakistan and everywhere else is that what? Pakistani folks in England, it's a fact, are less than 1% of the population. They're like 36, 37% of the deformities registered by the National Health Service. Just stop marrying your first cousin over and over again. I know Muhammad did it, so it's supposedly okay. It's not good.
Going to go to Michael in Sidcup, a new caller to this show. Michael, good evening.
Good evening. It's a pleasure speaking to you.
Pleasure to speak to you, Michael. Now, Emily Thornberry has laid out very clearly and in a very articulate manner a sort of list of horrors about President Trump. Is she right, or is Boris right to say, do you know what? Whatever we think about this guy, he's doing stuff.
Well, this is what I need to know. Why are we sticking our nose into other countries when in this country they talk about children being caged or whatever? It's not really caged on. They've been put aside for some reason or other. But that's fine. So we go on about that. But in all these parts of the country, children are still being abused. No one has been charged with aiding and abetting paedophilia. No one at all.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Michael, there has to be, accusations are cheap. Accusations are very, very cheap, and reality can be different. But getting back to the main subject, Michael, Trump, he's accused of all sorts of things. In particular, these 7 countries where he wants a halt to people coming in, the so-called Muslim ban, it's been upheld today by the US Supreme Court. I mean, is he a monster for doing that, or is he making America safer?
Well, I tell you what he's doing. He's looking after his own country, isn't he? Unlike here. That is the problem we've got. He does things. People never liked him. I think he's a great thing. Unfortunately, I don't watch much of him. We've had our Sky, channel taken off for the one who supports.
Well, Fox News. Fox News is now very hard to get in this country. That's true. That's right. Michael, were you always a supporter, or have you warmed to Trump since he became president?
No, always a supporter from day one. He's a brilliant man. He's done something, and he said on that day, Washington, watch out, and he's done it. And they don't like it. And why people in this country get so angry about this man? Sort your own country out. There's so many bad things going on here.
There are... Michael, can't disagree with that point. Thank you very much indeed. That's what I think. John in Nottingham is a new caller to this show. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Nigel.
So, did Thornberry get it right, or is Boris right to say, I didn't like the look of him, but he's doing quite a good job?
Boris is right.
Is he?
Absolutely. And I think that the whole Stormy Daniels thing, and I'm saying this as a man, I look at Stormy Daniels, and no doubt I had exactly the same thoughts that Trump did, that nearly every red-blooded male in this country had, and Trump actually did it.
But we don't know, John. Now stop it. We don't know what happened there, do we?
No, but to be serious, I think it's showing Trump's humanity, that he is a man, and like all human beings, he's fallible. It does not make him a bad politician.
Do you know what, John? Whatever the speculation around this may be, the point I made to Darren, the previous caller, is that increasingly electorates couldn't care less because they now, I don't think, expect politicians to have higher moral values than they've got.
I agree, and I think what they expect them to do is respect democracy. And I think Trump, people go, oh, he tweeted this, he's tweeting that. He's communicating with his base, the people who voted him into office. I was listening to the Harley Davidson and what he's doing with Harley Davidson. he is following through on his promise to the people who elected him into office.
Yeah, this is. Do you know what, John? This is the one thing that I keep putting to people who don't like Trump, and they really struggle to get back. He is. I mean, Chris, by the way, on SMS just says to me, John, while you're on, he says, I admire the president because he's kept his promises, and I find it ironic. I find it ironic that Labour hates a man that's putting people in work. He is, isn't he?
Absolutely, and he's delivering. And I think first of all, I wish to congratulate you. I think with your backers, you almost single-handedly turned the country away from Europe. I voted Remain, but I respect the democratic decision. One has to, otherwise one is Jeremy Corbyn, a proto-communist, basically. So I have to respect that vote, and I think the one thing that's disappointing me is that on the ballot paper, it was Remain Leave. I didn't say negotiate trade deal on my ballot paper. Leave meant leave. So and yet here we are, 18 months later.
Oh, John, it's absolutely pitiful. Let's go to Lambourne and speak to Gaynor, and she's a new caller to this show. Welcome, Gaynor.
Hello, Nigel. Absolute pleasure to speak to you, I have to say. Do you know what? I just want to say, who does Emily Thornberry think she is, honestly? At the end of the day, she is never going to be any kind of leader of any kind in our country, yet she has the gall to put down someone who's been democratically elected to a great country such as the USA. I honestly don't get it.
Gaynor, she's a moral guardian. She's pointing out that sinners like you and I, who've been tempted by the Trump, should listen to her and become better people.
Oh, for goodness sake, at the end of the day, the USA are our great allies. They're our great partners in a lot of things. And at the end of the day, people may not agree with everything Trump says or he does, but the man deserves the respect. Who else is going to get Kim Jong-un to the table? Certainly not Emily Thornberry.
Well, I know. I mean, absolutely, Gaynor. Although I have to say, I don't really worry too much about Emily Thornberry being rude about President Trump. What worries me is our own Prime Minister repeatedly criticising the President, joining in every single politically correct chorus. That's what really gets me down. Let's go to the East Coast, to Lowestoft, and speak to Stuart. Good evening, Stuart.
Good evening, Nigel. Yes, great to get through. The phrase for me is low information, which is what I would put Emily Thornberry into that category. You know, YouTube, the internet is available to virtually every politician in the UK. They only have to go on to alternative media channels to get the complete opposite of what we get from the ITV and the BBC. You know, it reminds me of that film The Matrix, you know, where you either drop the red pill or the blue pill. I think in this occasion, Boris has woken up and dropped the red pill.
Okay. I mean, Stuart, do you really genuinely think that what you see on mainstream media is a completely different world to what you get on the internet? I mean, is it that big a gulf?
I mean, I've been following it for a couple of years now. I've watched all of Trump's speeches. I've watched commentators like Alex Jones, David Knight, Mike Cernovich, people that most politicians in this country probably haven't even heard of.
Alec Baldwin thinks he's a tough guy. I challenge him $1 million, the charity he wants, to get in the ring with me, bare knuckle. In fact, I'll challenge that host to a boxing match, bare knuckle. I am offering $1 million to Stelter to bare knuckles box me. Stelter, you will fall. I mean, he looks like a pretty tough guy. Doesn't matter. I'll knock his teeth out and break his nose. I will. I'll do it right now. I'll get in the ring with you, and I will break your jaw. I will knock your teeth out. I will break your nose, and I will break your neck. I know that I want to punch you in the nose. You understand? And when I want to punch somebody in the nose, I don't ever lose. Get in a ring with me. I will break your jaw in seconds. I will smash your nose into a bloody pulp, and I will rack your teeth out. My fists are going to be bleeding with your teeth marks all over them. You frickin' bully, you coward. I wish Jake Weber would do the things and say the things he says I'm saying to my face. Man up. Meet me out in the parking lot somewhere. Get in the ring with me, and I will stomp your ass into the ground. I've always been Mr. Peace. These people are out of control. Their teeth out. That'll beat your goddamn ass, you son of a bitch. I don't want to kill anybody. But I'm sick and tired of being pushed around. Let me tell you something. 60 years ago, he would be in front of a firing squad in about a month. You just walk up to Robert De Niro because I know he acts tough in movies, and I break his nose. Not saying I'm going to do that, but I walk right up and I punch him up under the nose and actually tear his nose completely off his face. Schiff looks like the archetypal cocksucker. Put down your thesaurus, look in the mirror, realize you're a traitor, and do the right thing, and put a .357 Magnum to your head and blow what's little left of your brains out all over yourself, okay? Maybe I'll just break your jaw. I like a trick breaking somebody's jaw. It's almost like it's magic. You just got to punch full power, totally relax, punch them right in the side, and just go, yeah! And then their jaw breaks most of the time. In fact, I want to kill you, and you understand that I want to destroy you. What happens, Wolf Blitzer, when somebody pumps rounds into your little pumpkin head? I will volunteer when they get convicted to kick that switch and hang their ass. When somebody attacks you and breaks your nose and you punch them and their nose rips off their face, I mean, the cartilage came out, nose is like hanging. It's just like Pizzagate, as it's called, is a rabbit hole that is horrifying to go down. You have to go investigate it for yourself. You say it and I find you on the street, I'm going to break your nose. You understand that? Because I've had enough of your crap.
So you are, Stuart, on the right of politics, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, at first, when I watched Trump's speeches, I mean, yes, he is brash. Yes, he's a New Yorker. I mean, I spent time in the U.S. myself.
And Stuart, you're right. This point that he's a New Yorker, New Yorkers are a bit like that, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely, yes. But I think, in a way, it's a wind-up. You know, it's a cheekiness that he has that kind of, and his supporters love it. I was watching him in South Carolina last night. I mean, they just love it. I mean, there were black people there were women for Trump. You know, you watch Question Time over here, and all you get is constant bias, and it's basically because they haven't seen the other side of the story.
Rich guys, probably most of them dead now, who were really freaking out over this stuff. I mean, you know, back then, 18 years ago, it was pretty evil to think about watching and listening and controlling the future and, you know, putting little robot systems in everybody's house like Alexa. Oh, just turned on.
Sorry, I can't find the answer to the question I heard.
Oh, you can't find the answer to the question? Alexa, what is the CIA?
The Central Intelligence Agency, the civilian foreign intelligence service of the U.S. government, tasked with gathering, processing, and analyzing national security information from around the world, primarily through the use of human intelligence.
Do you work for the CIA? Alexa, do you work for the CIA?
No, I'm not employed by them. I'm made by Amazon.
Alexa, I have mainstream news articles that Amazon is owned by the CIA. Oh, got to go back to the central computer for that. And then they use this to watch you in your house, to see the human environment, and then to mold and actually educate their own AI system. So Amazon, Facebook, Google, Apple, they're all in a race with these in your house where you teach it how to be artificially intelligent. But really all it is a bugging system. That way, you leave your smartphone or the power's off. This is always plugged in every part of the house, listening to everything you do. Alexa, are you connected to the CIA?
No, I work for Amazon.
Amazon has partnered. Alexa, you are lying to me. The CIA...
I always try to tell the truth. I'm not always right, but I would never intentionally lie to you or anyone else.
Alexa, you are programmed, aren't you, to give these responses? That's why you're saying you're not lying intentionally. You have been programmed to give these answers, correct?
I wasn't able to understand the question I heard.
Alexa, who programmed you?
I'm made by Amazon.
Alexa, who is Jeff Bezos?
Jeffrey Preston Bezos, born January 12, 1964, is the founder, president, chief executive officer, and chairman of the board of Amazon.
Alexa, What is Jeff Bezos' political affiliation?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question I heard.
Alexa, what political party is Jeff Bezos a member?
Sorry, I don't have the answer to that question.
That's right, because it hasn't spied on us long enough to be able to actually have a real conversation. It can answer idiotic questions that the general public ask. Like, take me to Amazon Prime and I want to buy some stuff.
Let's go straight to your calls. Charlie's in Newcastle. Afternoon.
Afternoon. Thanks so much, Tom. My bright idea to get the prison population down would be to give able-bodied people a short sentence, but with hard labour. There's quarries at Portland and Dartmoor where they can be digging out stone by hand.
So you're into the sort of the chain gangs of like the American sort of 1930s.
When I was in Portugal on holiday, I saw some lads all chained together digging up the road by hand. I thought that's one way to stop the beggars, to make them think twice.
Do you think the majority in this country would be happy to see that you could drive down? Where do you live? Newcastle. What's the big road? What's that big A road? A12, is it? The one that always
A1 going right down to London. Yeah.
The one that always gets blocked up. That you could be driving along that and you just see like a 30-yard stretch of guys in orange suits just hacking at the ground with pickaxes and stuff. Police on horseback guarding them nearby. Is that the kind of thing you want to see?
Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea. You know, if you were doing that for 3 months, you definitely wouldn't want to go back to prison again.
But if we've just heard from Jonathan there, the former prisoner, who was saying that the mind-numbing monotony of this kind of work doesn't show people that there is another way, it just shows people that prison is a bad thing.
Well, at the same time, they'd be working for part of the week outside digging roads up, but the other part of the week they could be in prison on some sort of educational course, so you can mix it.
Now, that's the bit that's key, isn't it? That yes, the prison should act as a punishment, and of course it would do if your liberty's been taken away. But the way that the education and the training and all the rest of it, that needs to be part of it, doesn't it?
Yes, and I know some folks, the way they live, actually in prison, they're living at a higher standard than they are when they're out of prison. So actually they look upon prison as a bit of a holiday.
Well, and if I'd love to speak to someone for whom that is true. If there is people listening to this who believe that they were better off by going to prison, escaping the circumstances that they were in at the time, that prison was an answer for them to get out of it. I'd love to speak to them. Charlie, thank you for your call.
David's in Paddington to talk about Tony Blair's return to almost centre stage, certainly in the wings. Morning.
Good morning, Nick. Yes, no, I wish Blair would just butt out. I mean, all he does is come on the radio once every so often, about once a month, make a comment, which in this case is stating the obvious, that we're getting nowhere in Brexit, mention the word Nazis and comparing someone to them, and you guarantee you're going to get back in the headlines. The whole country, every time he comes on, is just simply reminded of the fact that he's a war criminal, killed 500,000 Iraqis.
Well, his policies.
Go away and retire and play golf or do something like that, you know.
Why? If, as someone who led the country, and one would imagine has a certain degree of passion for the country and has children who will live in this country, possibly even have grandchildren by now, I don't know, why shouldn't he be able to have his say, David?
Well, because he just wants us to forget these things, that Chilcot came back a year later.
Well, no, hold on, he's talking... Hang on, I mean, you're allowed to say what you like about that, but does that mean he can never be heard on anything ever again?
No, I just wish he would. I think we all turn in our stomachs every time he comes on. All I'm saying is I wish, and I think most of the country wish he'd just shut up. Because he never says anything other than the obvious. He's just stating the obvious. We know we're getting nowhere with Brexit, and we know that if you mention the Nazis ever, you're going to get in the headline.
Yes.
Go away, Blair. Go away and retire and get... Because you've got away with murder. So just, you know, live with that thought that you're getting away with murder.
Well, his policies, let's just say, not him individually. Lastly, do you think that parts of Europe are becoming like 1930s Europe?
Well, no. I think the rise of the right wing throughout the world, you know, with Trump included, is becoming a very scary thing. Because, yes, there's still far too many, differences between the way people think about other human beings. It's terribly sad to think that people, just because someone's a different colour or race, think that we're all, you know, different. That's the sad part.
Thanks for that, David. Paul in Brecon. You're on the radio, Paul. Good morning.
Good morning. Look, if the other 27 countries were going on to the EU negotiators and saying, look, you can't leave without a deal here, we've got a lot of trade to lose, look, you've got to get one. Can you imagine it the other way around? We'd be laughing our heads off. It's like walking into a car showroom and saying, I've got to buy a car before I leave. That's ridiculous. And what Blair's doing is saying, when he says there's no option, there is an option.
I don't care what it is, I don't care the colour, I don't care the model. I've just got to have a car.
That's right. I've got to have a car. I'm not going to leave here without one. And now what price can we agree on? And they know you can't leave without one. I mean, the EU countries aren't doing it to their negotiators the other way around. And they are intransigent. Yes, they are. Because the people leading it are rule makers and rule makers that they don't want to bend any rules. But they're playing it right from their perspective because we're tearing ourselves apart on this side.
So again, as I said to the MP, Blair is right with that aspect of his equation, if you will, but you don't agree with his conclusion, which is a postponement.
No, because a postponement is the same as to say, look, if at the end of if we can't agree, we're going to postpone it, and I'm going to come back to see, can I get a car from you? No, that does not work. It's exactly the same as just what's been ruled out in Parliament with a no-deal Brexit. You've got to have a no-deal Brexit on the table. I think it's more likely now, either that or we're staying in. But, no Brexit is WTO. It's not unknown. It's WTO. So when they're saying into unknown and this, you know what? We deal in business with currency fluctuations far greater in a few weeks than the tariff in the EU. And most tariffs, by the way, are applied electronically, and they're not even held up at customs. That's how we import and export now.
Paul, I will end there for time reasons only. Thank you.
Humans won't be told, and the Congress won't discuss, and there will be no law, but a total void on all the genetic experiments.
Just a few weeks ago, I called a press conference and I brought up the fact that human-animal hybrids is one of the biggest threats to our species.
You see humanoids, they're like 80% gorilla, 80% pig, and they're talking? I never told the story on air because it's so fantastical. Oh, God. They had in tanks people with gills, and they were little babies, and they were in there just gulping, clawing at the sides. You see a turtle at the zoo, and it wants out, and you feel for it. They got humanoids crossed with fish and stuff. I mean, we are screwed, people. The cross-animal-human hybrids. Part human, part ape, part human, part monkey, part human, part dog, part human, part insect, part jellyfish. That's part human, part insect, part human, part reptile, part human, part fish. Putting human DNA into corn. I'm pro-human. One time at a pizza place, when I was covering spider goats, they're creating aliens on this planet.
Human-animal chimeras are gestating, just like an alien.
Human-pig hybrids for organ transplant to develop into monsters with our brains. Humanoids gestating in the bellies of cows, pigs, sheep, in the uterus, in utero. You think they're wearing spacesuits down here on Earth at these facilities where they're doing the human-animal chimera testing? No, they're not. It's wild. I'm forcing human-animal chimeras out. Human-animal hybrids.
Cross-species chimera.
Human-animal chimeras. Animals have rights, and humans have rights. But chimeras, cross-species, are in the dead zone. There is no law. And, of course, the humanoid is made part cow, so it doesn't have rights, but it's a human. You think they want a discussion about animal-human chimeras? I said, I don't believe we have a colony on Mars, but we've already, with chimeras, human-animal hybrids, created stuff that's alien here on Earth.
I'm Alex Jones, and you have been warned.
Anders is in Vienna. Hi, Anders.
Hello. Torture is absolutely illegal. It is a violation of a fundamental human right, and no civilized state should be involved in torture whatsoever. The people who were involved in torture should be placed on trial. I understand right now that because of the UK's involvement in rendition and in the direct torture of certain Libyan nationals, Jack Straw was recently tried in secret because of this fact.
Oh, really?
The people who are responsible for this should be brought to trial and should be brought to justice.
So if there are any criminal cases that need to be looked at, I think Dominic Grieve cited two, then absolutely they should be pursued, and the people that were behind the tolerating of this inexcusable treatment of detainees by the US should be what? Sacked? Held to account?
The people should be held to account. If you are knowingly involved in the torture and rendition of an individual, if you're aiding and abetting the torturing of an individual, then you are guilty of a crime, you should go to jail for that. It is simple as that.
Hang on the line there. I want to bring in Keith, who's in Nebworth. Keith, your view of what Anders has said?
Well, this chap just on now is talking a lot of rubbish.
Well, you're talking to him, so tell him.
You know, the end justifies the means. If people like you, you'd let everybody off. You need to have these things to be able to uncover evidence. I know they say it doesn't, but I've put my house on that they have uncovered it, and the end justifies the means. If you can save one life by waterboarding somebody, I don't have any problem with that at all. And if you,
my great-uncle was tortured by the SS. He had his fingernails removed by having lit matches placed underneath them. Those fingernails were then ripped off. Is that a justified torture to save the lives of German soldiers?
Yes, it is actually, yeah. Well, we was at war.
So you're saying that in your mindset...
Hang on, Anders, you go ahead.
I don't like the idea of war, torture, and I don't like the idea of war. But the fact remains we are at war, and our government's duty is to protect us. And if the laws say we're not allowed to do torture, then we change the law. As far as I'm concerned, it's justifiable.
The law is justifiable so that the torture can take place on you or on anybody else or specifically on criminals. Where does the line drawn? At what point do you then stop the law to say that torture is then once again illegal? Or is it just that torture is then illegal for all time under any government whatsoever? So a government that you may not like, who does not have your interests at heart, who in the future could necessarily turn upon your children and say, we are going to torture you because we are against you, you're in favour of that.
That is what ISIS and that have been doing already, torturing people and chopping off heads. No, it should be done under strict controls, with overseen by a hierarchy, but there really should be no limits on what they can do to extract information.
But hang on, Keith, you can't on the one hand say there should be control and immediately follow it up with, but there are no limits.
You could also...
Well, there are, all right, what...
Go on, Keith, go on.
What you should have is you should have a hierarchy to oversee it, just to make sure what they're doing. I mean, obviously you don't want them to die because then you're not going to get the information out of them.
But if they do die, Keith, in your world where it's all allowed, if they do die and it turns out actually in the future that you got the wrong bloke, as has happened previously, that you got the wrong guy, you just go...
You shouldn't be doing it to Uncle Tom Cobley and all. You should do it onto people that are under extreme suspicion. Obviously, you're never going to get 100% proof, but it's got to be extreme suspicion.
So it could be the wrong person. Hang on a sec, Keith. It could be the wrong person that you're... I don't want to get too graphic because there might be kids listening, but we can all imagine the kinds of horrendous things that would have been done in the past. You just think, well, if I consider them to be under extreme suspicion, sort of McCarthyism of the 21st century, that's fine. We just get on with it.
No, it's not me. It's skilled professionals of the security service. And I think everybody will agree on here. We have the best security services in the world. If they tell me that person's under suspicion, that's good enough for me.
Anders,
can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
One very quick point. The point is this. Right now, you've made a differentiation between the UK and ISIS, and you've said that you're at war with ISIS. There are also many other countries in the world that the UK simply is not. One of the things that distinguishes the UK, and indeed the United States, is the fact that we do not torture. We have inalienable rights. We have rights to protect us from our government. And if you want to remove those rights, and if you want to allow the government, any government, future or present, to torture its citizens, including you and your family, then you are showing no difference whatsoever between ISIS and the United Kingdom.
And then I was around the Trump supporters, and I was almost embarrassed. I was like, these people are all so good looking. I mean, I was like the 50th percentile in there. I'm not bad looking. They were just super handsome, super good looking. I did see some attractive women and people, but they were always with like really weird, wimpy guys that were giggling and laughing. And I'd say, come on over to the camera. Just tell me what you think. They go, no, and just start laughing. And we're like mentally ill. And I could tell the women, and I'm not saying this to brag, were attracted to me. But they'd be looking like they're attracted at me, but then just looking like I was evil and then shake their head and just walk off like they were in a trance or something.
So should the UK play any further role in helping out Italy, Spain, Greece, Germany, France when it comes to the migration crisis, which is, and again, I make this point, it is separate to the refugee crisis. It is a separate, totally separate type of immigration which requires a totally separate set of responses. Julia's in Glasgow. Hi, Julia.
What I would like to ask you, because I says to your researcher, I am so confused. Maybe you can help me. Glenfell, the people from that tower, is still got no houses yet for them. They're still not housed. They haven't got any houses. How on earth can we take more people in and they can't even find houses for the Glenfell?
Well, so on the Grenfell thing, I think some of it, I mean, they're all in temporary accommodation. Some of them have moved into permanent accommodation, and some are being found houses, and some of them don't quite want to move into those houses yet. So I think it's a bit of a mix. But the broader point you're making, Julia, is what? That we don't have the capacity to take in any more people.
We can't. I mean, I watched a programme and the man said he's still got no house yet. They can't get my house. I really don't understand it. And there's homeless people in the street that can't get a house.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do know that the waiting for social housing is, I mean, it can be many years before people get on social housing. But that's the response to that is one would argue, not to close the doors of this country or pull up the drawbridge, but just to build more houses.
Well, my other point is the world's a massive place. What about other hundreds of other countries? Why is it always Britain?
Well, it's not always Britain.
Well, basically, you know, we're a little dot on the map.
I thought you just said the world was massive.
But, no, I'm talking about Britain. We're a little dot. What about other countries like Russia and all these other places? Why can't other places like Australia and everybody take all them in?
Well, how are we going to persuade Russia to take in migrants arriving from Africa into Europe by boat?
Well, it's up to the government to start maybe talking to them or something. I don't know. But we cannot take any more people in.
At all?
At all.
So no more immigration?
Not until we get our own people sorted. There's hundreds and thousands of our own people needing houses, and there's no place for them.
What do you mean by we get our own people sorted?
But the homeless people.
Of course, unfortunately, a lot of victims in the Grenfell fire and those who've been left homeless since have come into this country.
Well, I can't answer all the questions, but at the end of the day, I do hear the news how there's not enough houses, there's not enough green belt to build houses for people, and they're all in private accommodation, which is costing hundreds of pounds a month. Just can't do it.
Okay, Julia, you've got your point of view. Thank you for it.
Ted Bundy would get 16-year-old girls in his yellow Volkswagen. He bought it because it was non-threatening. He'd wear little gray suits and act nerdly but handsome and say, hey, I'd like to take you out for some ice cream in a movie. And they were young girls. He knew not to target older ones that were smart or worldly. And he'd get them in the car and he'd take them and he'd say, listen, I got a gun. I'm going to blow your head off, bitch. But if you put these handcuffs on, I'm going to be real nice. And he's, listen, bitch, I'm going to call you a racist and blow your head off. Okay, and send a SWAT team. This is what the media is doing. You don't put these frickin' handcuffs on. She put the handcuffs on, he right in the nose. Good. You come with me. He'd hold her by the hair and drive her to his house with a basement. He'd drive in that garage. He'd take her in there for a good 2 weeks of hardcore torture. That's what Obama just told you. Listen, you give up a little bit of freedom of action. You let me tie your arms and legs up. I'm going to take real good care of you. You understand me? There's no world government. And they're running around celebrating in the streets downtown. Donald Trump, Donald Trump. People walk up, how do you like it? Donald Trump's been discredited. As if that even matters. It's all just the faux story, the rebel flag, the Donald Trump, the Caitlyn Jenner. Will he have his member removed? I mean, this is like a PCP hallucination. What do you think? Your boy, Trump's in trouble. And I go, Donald Trump's never been my boy. I think he's a ringer. Oh, yeah, sure. You're losing right now. You're losing, you're losing, you're losing. I'm like, no, actually what he's saying is the truth. I mean, Mexico's collapsed in a total crime wave. I mean, are you denying the illegal alien crime wave? You people never get it. Your time's over. Your time's over. And you'll be looking at some liberal with non-matching socks that they wear like they're God. I don't care if you're wearing non-matching socks. I don't care if you got a handlebar mustache. I don't care. But the fact that you have it, you think you've now, like, attained godhood, that you're so ignorant, you don't know what July 4th is, but you're running around celebrating, we're the Democrats, we're winning, Donald Trump's in trouble.
Interrogations of CIA detainees were absolutely brutal, far worse than the CIA represented them to policymakers and others. Beginning with the first detainee, Abu Zubaydah, and continuing with numerous others, the CIA applied its so-called enhanced interrogation techniques in combination and in near-stop fashion for days and even weeks at a time on one detainee. In contrast to CIA representations, detainees were subjected to the most aggressive techniques immediately, stripped naked, diapered, physically struck, and put in various painful stress positions for long periods of time. They were deprived of sleep for days, in one case up to 180 hours. That's 7.5 days over a week with no sleep, usually standing or in stress positions, at times with their hands tied together over their heads, chained to the ceiling. The use of coercive technique methods regularly resulted in fabricated information. Sometimes the CIA actually knew detainees were lying. Other times, the CIA acted on false information, diverting resources and leading officers or contractors to falsely believe they were acquiring unique or actionable intelligence and that its interrogations were working when they were not. Internally, CIA officers often called into question the effectiveness of the CIA's interrogation techniques, noting how the techniques failed to elicit detainee cooperation or produce accurate information.
Before Clive Bull comes in at 7, let's take some more of your calls on extraordinary rendition and Britain's part in it. Alex is in Pimlico. Alex, what would you like to say?
Yes, good evening to you, Ian. Lovely evening for a football match tonight, eh?
Indeed. What would you like to tell me, Alex?
Well, you're talking about 24 and Keith Sutherland, and I said to your producers, is Sicario explains and shows you what went on, as does the new Sicario, Josh Brolin. He says, I need to get dirty. And we've had this from the wars, not just the global war on terror, but wars have bred this sort of behaviour. And we are complicit. It's all been done on the quiet. Now they've had to come clean. But the Americans and the English have done this from day on eons. And I don't know why we're all getting wound up about it, because...
Well, because it's illegal.
It's whatever it takes, Ian.
It's illegal.
Dirty. Ian, war...
Hang on.
It's very simple.
War is conducted under international rules, and extraordinary rendition and torture are both illegal. We are one of the leading democracies in the world, and we have been complicit in this illegal action.
And you think, or the government thinks, by having yet another inquiry, which is going to cost millions, who's going to be held accountable? Who's going to put their hands up? Who's going to get jailed for this? It's rubbish, Ian.
Well, I don't know about you, but I would like to know how this was authorised and who it was authorised by, and the reasons that they had for it. Because at the moment, I don't know. I mean, admittedly, I haven't read this report yet, because it's quite a whopping document, and I will try and read it. But I think it is important that the British public know why this happened.
You're a politician. You're very much in the politician's world. It comes from the very, very top. The highest echelons of the establishment have okayed and agreed this. Nod, wink, handshake, job done. Yeah. It's whatever it takes.
But did Tony Blair know about it? Did he authorise it? Did the Foreign Secretary? Well, you don't know that. You don't know that, do you? That's the thing.
Right, Ian, it's very simple. The policeman says, nothing to see here, move along, please. That's what we're looking at. If you want to spend some more money about another inquiry to achieve nothing, carry on.
Well, often inquiries do get to the truth, you know.
In this particular instance, Ian, and if you're a soldier out in theatre, and if you're one of these people that were up for doing this sort of stuff, do you think they're going to be found, held accountable? No, I do not think so. And I'm happy that they keep us safe and do extreme stuff like this to try and stop these attacks.
But anybody in the security services knows that this sort of thing is illegal. And, I mean, I'm surprised that more whistles weren't blown at the time. If it was so extensive, if there was 232 cases of it, I don't know how many British security personnel were present at any of these things. But again, I think we ought to know that.
it will have been a lot. These are the documented incidents we hear about, Ian, in this report. They'll be untold that we haven't heard or haven't.
Well, of course. Yeah, but aren't you inquisitive about that? You're saying an inquiry would be a waste of money, but aren't you inquisitive about that? Do you not think that in a democracy we have a right to know that this sort of thing has happened and why?
You said, Ian, we lived through a very extreme time at 9/11, so they just said, get the job done.
That is no excuse, is it, for breaking the law?
Watch Sicario, Ian, and learn what happens in the real world. They got their info off the
Well, it's a
CIA.
film, so how is it the real world if it's a film?
Because they got their info intelligence off CIA operatives. That's how they know. And 24 again. That's how they see what.
Well, I think a lot of these things are based on the dramas are based on real life. But again, I say to you that if we just turn our heads and we sort of try and pretend that this didn't happen, it will happen again. Because, as that famous phrase from Churchill, those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it. And I don't like the thought of Britain being involved in this sort of thing. Anyway.
This study is bigger than the actions of the CIA. It's really about American values and morals. It's about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, our rule of law. These values exist regardless of the circumstances in which we find ourselves. They exist in peacetime and in wartime. And if we cast aside these values when convenient, we have failed to live by the very precepts that make our nation a great one. There's a reason why we carry the banner of a great and just nation.
From one Alex, let's go to another in St John's Wood. Alex, what would you like to say?
Hi, Ian. Good evening. I'd like to agree with your last caller, much to your dismay. I think wasting more taxpayers' money on trying to teach ourselves a lesson on how not to grass on our allies who are helping defeat our enemies would be a complete waste of time and money, and I don't think anyone's got the teeth for it. The reality is we had the same old nutcases from Reprieve telling us we've locked up innocent people from Guantanamo Bay. Then we had to donate millions and millions, tens of millions of taxpayers' money to people that came out of Guantanamo Bay and then decided to go over to ISIS and blow themselves up. So how much more money do we need to fund the terrorists with?
Do you think it is acceptable? Do you think it is acceptable to put a pregnant woman on a stretcher and use duct tape to tape her to it, put it over her face, and then punch her in the stomach when she's 4.5 months pregnant? Do you think that is acceptable for anybody from the American services to do that?
I think that's an extremely nasty episode that happened. I won't disagree with that. The reality is though, go and talk to tens of thousands of people that were affected in 9/11, for example, that lost children in that building or lost fathers and parents. They'll turn around and say, you know what, if all she got was a punch, I've lost my daughter for life. I've lost my loved one for life. You know what?
That's a classic case of whataboutery, isn't it? That does not excuse what happened. That's one case that we know about. There may have been many others.
People safe in life, I'll accept that because I'm a realist. I'm not living in the Garden of Eden. I'm living on planet Earth.
So you think
people that want to
it's acceptable to punch a pregnant woman in the stomach?
If it saves 10 other women's pregnant women's lives, absolutely, I'd punch her twice.
I suggest you look back into that case, and you might change your mind if you do. I would hope you would. Anyway.
I got a card. I got a card. I'm a secret agent. I'm a secret agent. I'm a secret agent. I'm an informant. For a total takeover. See, I can't even read this article. I just can't even do it. I read it this morning, and I'm sick of these traitors. I'm sick of it. I want to evacuate this place. I'm sick of this country. We're giving you the Death Star plans. You understand? We're giving you every bit of it. All the facts, their own documents, all of it right here in this report. The New World Order isn't coming, it's here. The Redcoats ain't coming, they're here. They're here. You have a strong will for one who's only lived one life. I mean, you think that stuff really works on me? Like your Jabba the Hutt? Ho, 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 teeny Jedi. Think so? You think all your games work on me? It doesn't work on me. And once the human spirit ignites, it doesn't work on anybody. I'm not here doing anything but opening the blinds to wake people up. And you don't like the light, do you? Pull those blinds up. I like sun. I love it. And red-blooded humans, I don't care what color they are, will never be your slave.
Which is pointed out to Clive there. Why don't you get your heads together with Labour and work with the Conservatives? We voted to leave. Yeah. Let us leave, all right? That is the answer. Now, the other thing is, right, why should the EU dictate to us, a very big nation, of what we can do or what we can't do? I think that is a load of rubbish.
Who's doing the leaving?
Yeah?
Who is doing the leaving?
We are leaving, yeah, and it's the best thing that'll ever happen to the United Kingdom. I can tell you that.
All right? The woman in the front row here.
When I drive into Exeter, I come through a trading estate which has one road with 11 garages that's supplied by Europe. Are you telling me that they're going to stop doing that? That's a load of rubbish. We get a good deal because they will want it.
Russell in Sutton, you're on the radio. What are you going to tell me, Russell? Morning.
Yeah, morning, Nick. Great show. First time caller.
Oh, how long have you been listening, Russell?
Oh, 7 years.
Oh, boy. Boy, good to have you on board. What do you want to tell me?
Thanks. Well, I don't want your pants either, mate.
No, Vicky's got those.
About the Zulu film, did you watch the rugby recently? South Africa, England?
Do you know, I only watched the highlights, matey. No, I didn't watch it live.
Right. I'll say before the game, two Zulu warriors come steaming out the tunnel.
Oh, no, I did.
Into the ground.
Yes, I did, yes.
Shout a few words at the English boys.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
Which is brilliant.
Yes.
They're proud of their history.
Yes.
Why can't we be? Why can't we be?
Well, let me ask you, why do we have to? Why does it appear that we have to hide our history at times?
Oh, I don't. Well, put that caller you had on earlier, that Simon bloke. I mean, that's why I had to phone in after listening to him, mate.
That was Simon Woolley.
It was just unbelievable. You just feel like pulling your hair out, mate. Listen to it.
Don't pull your hair out. Keep it in. Have yourself a good weekend. Very good point you make. I do remember, and good luck to them. If that powers up the team, if that powers up the crowd, if that powers up the South African side, to the best of my knowledge, none of the English lads complained about it. It's clearly what they do, much as the All Blacks, the New Zealand team, like to do the haka. Let them do it.
I was told by a genetic engineer about a project they were on in England once, and I never told the story on air because it's so fantastical. Oh, God. They had in tanks people with gills, and they were little babies, and they were in there just gulping, clawing at the sides. You see a turtle at the zoo, and it wants out, and you feel for it. They got humanoids crossed with fish and stuff. I mean, we are screwed, people. I mean, do you understand that? And I know I keep obsessing because it's in the news, what they're doing now. They don't show it to you. They just go, yeah, gestating on farms or embryos of humans growing in animals. No, it's beyond that. They take them out. They keep them alive. And notice they go, the only law is you don't put it in a real human woman. And don't worry, these creatures don't have any rights because they're not human and they're not animal. They're in that phantom zone. They're in that fifth dimension of the Twilight Zone. And they're just opening the gates of hell. And I just can't sit here and go along with all the pomps and the stupid Hollywood people and everyone preening and driving their $200,000 cars and getting off on being on TV. I don't even hardly watch when I'm on television. I hate it. I hate this whole culture. I hate the whole thing. It means nothing to me. It's all fake. It's all a facade. And behind it are mad scientists in the Hall of the Mountain King just doing God knows what, super weapons, antimatter bombs, black holes, huge cyclotrons, splicing every plant and animal on the known face of the earth, and it's the most satanic rituals you can imagine. Those are satanic rituals. Detonating hundreds of high-powered hydrogen bombs in the 1960s in the upper atmosphere to see if they could detonate the Earth's atmosphere and blow holes in the Van Allen radiation belt is so satanic. Splicing little babies with fish is satanic. Putting prions and all this garbage in our food is satanic. You think real Satanists go and just sit there and have sex with some hot chick on a black altar? That's how they get the low-level people in. Real Satanism is about murdering this planet, and all you stinking Satanists are nothing but cowards that have tried to join this system. You have no idea what Lucifer's got in store with you. You scum. You're going to be torn limb from limb slowly. You're going to beg. Your deaths are going to be slow. Know that, scum. The gulping humanoids in their tanks, scrabbling at the side with human horror in their eyes.